You're listening to the Dean Martin Association podcast, the place for all things Dino. This episode, we're joined by actor, singer, dancer, and horticulturalist George Daniel Long, who will be talking about his career and performing as Sammy Davis Jr. Is that okay, Mr. Martin?
What do you think, Miss...
Williford. Cindy Williford. I'm in research.
Research? That's one of our more vital departments in the organization. Where is it?
45th floor, behind the water cooler. Cooler. You can hardly call it that, the way it's been working lately.
Welcome to episode 6.
Time it rains, pennies from heaven.
If I don't sing a song here soon, you're going to see some troops up on this stage.
All over town. Be sure that your umbrella is up beside or down. Trade him for a bag. Oh, I like the one where the teacher said, Tommy, you got a fairy godmother? He said, no, but we got an uncle we keep a close eye on. Hear it thunder, don't run under a tree. Heavy pennies from heaven for you and me. Oh, yeah. A foggy day. Don't get nervous. In London town. Had me low. And it had me down. View the morning with much alarm. You got any writing on that cigarette there? The British Museum.
I'm going to make one more turn to find out here, I'll tell you that.
Has lost its charm.
And hope for the best.
How long I wonder.
I'm gonna mix me another salad here.
Could this thing last? But the age of miracles,
I'll mix you one better.
it hadn't passed. 'Cause suddenly I saw you there.
Hey, how all these people get in my room?
And in foggy London town, the sun was shining.
Right, okay. Well, thank you for joining us, George. You've been part of the Definitive Rat Pack for some years now. Could you tell us how that began? Where did you start?
It started off we were all in the Rat Pack Live from Las Vegas in the West End. I was with the show a tour earlier than Mark and Stephen, and then they joined on my second tour and before we went into the West End, and we did a year in the West End, and I left, but we'd been doing the tour before and also a short run at the Theatre Royal Haymarket, and then I left and I came back to work with them in 2010, back on the same show.
Yeah.
And we were doing various tours for a different company who we weren't that impressed with. I won't name names to say too much. Yeah. But the next time we were all due to go out together, they didn't ask Mark.
Okay.
And there was a lot of politics going on. So Mark decided, well, fine, I'll contact some old colleagues and see if they want to take our own show, which was taken first by a Danish company called CSB, and Mark lined up a trial run there. In fact, we've always premiered the show, before it became Sinatra and Friends with the Nancy medley, we always premiered it with this Danish company.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then and also I didn't want to do it without Mark either. I'm like, why are you splitting us up? We work as we've known each other a long time. You have to all get or at least make each other laugh on stage.
Yeah.
Because you're pairing me up with with some random new person who I don't know very well. And the fact that what we do, the reason why we're so successful at it is because we know each other well enough. If you see just three random people plonked on together, it's not, you need to know each other well enough. And in fact, the way they knew each other well enough to kind of ad lib and get away with stuff. So yes, so me and Stephen told the other company, actually, no thanks. And the rest was history.
Yeah. So did you, I guess you auditioned for the role, or did you chase for the role?
No, I was previously working for the same company on another one of their shows, and the director of the Rat Pack and the assistant director kind of, I think they had a plan that I'd take over from when they first did the show, it was three people and they weren't actually trying to play the characters. They were just, it was in workshops. So they were being called by their real names.
Okay.
And then they started adding in nicknames, but then none of them looked anything like or were trying to be that person or to necessarily sound like they were just, it was at its early stages.
It's just almost like a Rat Pack songbook, I suppose.
And it was coming together into something, but I think the next level they needed people to actually, they decided after it had been out once, they decided it needed to be people being those people, not just themselves. So that's when I joined. But I think because I've been working for the same director choreographer before, they'd kind of thought, oh, actually, I think. So it was kind of in the bag. We did a TV documentary. There was an awful talent show documentary that I was put on and auditioning for Sammy. But in hindsight, actually, they just had to do it as a formality. They knew they were going to give the job to me. But it was awful because I think because they knew that the job was going to me, they decided to make it look. They made me look quite bad. They kind of changed things that weren't there, or things that I said. They put extra footage on, or they even got me. I was fake crying on the stairs.
Oh dear!
Oh my goodness! And they used that to make it look like I was actually worried about getting the job.
These TV executives, who do they think they are?
I know. So it was, but really knew much about Sammy before then.
Did you really study who he was to evolve to who you are now?
That's in two kind of stages, because when we first started, there was no YouTube.
Right.
And there was not much stuff in the public domain. And videos were a lot of recordings you had to import from the States. And there was very few videos. When we watched the summit, we had a copy of the summit. But at that point, I was much younger and I was treating it more as a dancer-singer than an actor, if that makes sense. And
yes,
when I'd left the show originally and people came in after me, there was a guy who used to be my understudy but came in and took over the role two productions later. And I came back and I watched it and I was really fascinated with his performance, how he was acting it. And I thought, but he is more an actor than a singer and a dancer. So I thought, oh, I wish I could do it more like that. I think that's more believable. So I then went away and started going, right, to do that, I need to, and luckily it was out there at this point, it was easier to see material and find books and stuff. That's when I started to go and dig more into his character and watch him perform more in different periods of his career to get an understanding of him. But fortunately, though, we're very similar in a way of being performers. It's just like and I think all of us are very similar to the people we play. My job has always been to go out there and perform and to do the best that I can. And, you're there not just for yourself, you're there to entertain. And you're focusing more on your craft. And I think that's a lot of things that he did, was like, he made it his mission to be the best he could be. And he always said, if I couldn't do it, I wouldn't, or wouldn't do it if I couldn't do it, whichever way around he said it. But I think naturally I have some similarities anyway in the way I perform, because I like to connect in the same way that he does. And we're kind of the way he clearly showed physically what he was doing, as well as the way he was singing it. He was always performing, and it was never let a moment go by wasted, I found. So
Right.
So it came quite natural to you then.
Yeah, it was quite natural, because being a all-round entertainer, it's kind of what you do. So I think that was already there. I just had to try to find ways of making it more believably him.
Yeah,
I know I go into George sometimes, but then you have to, in order to connect with the other two guys. But the fundamental thing is, I always think about, would he say this? Would he do that?
I think as well, one thing that I've kind of watching the originals, and of course, knowing you three, and I've obviously seen you three many, many times. I've always, I'm going to say this, and Mark and Sil will probably come in and shoot me now, but I always think you're the one that works hardest.
Well, in the same respect, you have to. But it's the same that Sammy had. He had to work the hardest, because at that time he couldn't get away with it. You know, things were very slim for African Americans, and the same is when I started doing it. The support the audience always gave Frank and Dean, because they sing all the songs that everyone knows. Sammy sings a lot of songs that they don't know. So you have to work harder to make them like the song that they don't know. You have to work harder to gain their attention, because you're not seen as the kind of dude that the other two are. I mean, in some respects now, people kind of think that, you know, but you have to show them you are before. You don't get that before you come straight on stage. Whereas anyone playing Frank or Dean has all the classics. Everyone knows him. Some people don't know Sammy, don't know what he was like. They think they do, or all they know is Mr. Bojangles. You also third on, so by this point the audience have seen two people for about half an hour. So that also means that you've got to come on, and
you have to come in strong.
And in the old version, there were a lot of, we've taken them all out, but there were a lot of things in the script that were racist and stuff. So you had to kind of tackle that as well with the audience. Every time something marginally racist was said, and the audience laughing hysterically at it, you had to stand there on stage being just a bit like, it's funny. But you had to feel, you had to do it to be true to him.
Right.
But then what happens is that we did carry on doing things like that, but then people will only hear what they want to hear. So I remember, I mean, anything I say generally is verbatim what he said, picked off certain recordings, and I'll maybe add a few together to make a good section, or change a few words to make it clearer. It's been negotiating a lot of these changes in cultural environments has made my performance slightly different, but it's still, in some ways it's moved on, and in some ways it hasn't. But you still have to go out there and kind of really work hard, because like I said, it's a lot of unfamiliar territory. And people say, oh, why don't you do Candyman in the show? And which I don't think he really liked, and I don't like. But again, it's a song that is so just sung straight through. I have to find ways of doing his songs with his phrasing and rhythms, if I can, the uniqueness of what he did, to get people to kind of go, oh, if I just did Candyman's and straight sings, it wouldn't be the same. So I always have to pick stuff that really shows him, because I don't think people do know his work.
Yeah, I mean, you know, saying about, you know, you're kind of the almost the third wheel, I suppose, one of the awful phrase. But look at the title; it's Frank Dean and Sammy. You know, it's almost like a full stop between the Dean and the and. When we started doing the podcast, and I thought, I've got to get George on, because I kind of want people to know about Sammy. You know, because people just either don't know, don't care, or seem not interested. And I just think that's really such a terrible shame, because he was such a huge part of that era, and not because of his political views or his love life, and you know, all those kind of things, all that kind of stuff that he went through. I think he was certainly the most fractious of the three, because he had so many good ideas, strong opinions, and he was forthright. And I think with Dean, he was just very laid back, as we know, and, you know, took thing in his stride. And Frank was got to get the song right after 250th take, and I want to be friends with JFK, and all these kind of things that made Frank who he was. But I think Sammy just gets so overlooked, and I think he gets a bad rap.
And that's also the period it was in. I mean, it was so tough for any performer then. He did pave the way, and he really earned his dues. And the fact that he still wasn't getting the recognition that the other two were getting, but also, as I said, the time, you know, you weren't going to plonk Sammy on every single TV show at that point. Nobody was going to be offering him record deals left, right, and centre. And that was just a default of birth, really. But then, like we say, you know, that was, you know, in the 60s when they were doing their thing. But still, when we were talking, I mean, people see Sammy on stage as the kind of the stooge for things, you know, all the jokes were a lot of them were aimed at him, etc.
Thank you, this
So
award.
they make that dynamic is created in the audience minds, and even though they're not thinking, oh, Sammy had to just take that because that was the time and he had to toe the line in some ways. They're thinking that he's weak, and I think that gives the impression that he's. And I did notice that if there were times when I ad-lib, it's fine if they said stuff about me. If I then said something back, sometimes the audience would go, ooh. I'm thinking, so it's fine for them to say things to me all the time, but if I say something back, like I remember there was something he said, was a live line, he said, and I added it in one night, I came on, I said to the MD, I said, Barry, there are too many white fellas in the band, or something, which is what he said. But not actually meaning that, pointing out there were no black people in the band. they gasped as if I were being. But it's kind of the parallels. But you'd finish a show and people would treat you afterwards in the same way your character was. So they would literally be, Frank, Dean, and then somebody go, Sammy, and they'd shove me out the way. To get to Frank and Dean, or you turn up at an event and Mark and Stephen would walk through, security would stop me being an entertainer, you know, and that's the parallels that he would have had that are still relevant in my career. I mean, we were opening the show in Aberdeen, and I was doing a press interview, and I was saying about, you know, sometimes as a performer of colour, you do feel like a performing monkey. You sometimes feel that you've got to work that bit, like we're saying, work that bit harder to prove that you're any good at anything. Because even then, you know, 20 years ago, people weren't being as respected. It's getting better. But I said, so, you know, she said, oh, there's no racism now. You know, times have changed, haven't they? You know, and it can't be relevant in the show anymore or something. That night, we're invited to a bar for our opening party, and a woman comes across the bar, and she looks at me, and she points at Stephen the Mark, she goes, you're not the same colour as him, you're not the same colour as him, your sort should, and I'm thinking like, okay, I said, what do you mean my sort? And the boys turned around and went, what? But I'm thinking, so the interview I did that day, I told you, it's so when you're a threesome like that, if that's how I'm treated now, sometimes working with the guys, and we're not the real people. Imagine what it was like for him then. It would have been even worse. I mean, you look at like loads of instances where he was snubbed, and yet he still kept going because A, he loved it, and B, he had a duty to his art to kind of. If he gave up, what would that do with him for his legacy? You know, so many times I'm sure he felt like, sod this. Why am I doing this?
And I think as well, it's that legacy, you know, that yourself and other artists are kind of. It's so important that you're here doing it, George. It really is, for that very reason. Because it, as I say, he's such a intrinsic part of the Rat Pack, intrinsic part of music and entertainment. That, you know, we need to kind of keep that going, and that's part of the whole reason why we're doing the podcast, why the DMA is going after 62 years now, to keep this kind of era alive, because it's vitally important. But kind of put apart from Sammy, where else has your career taken you?
Oh, all over the place. I started off in my first. I was a backing dancer and a commercial dancer for a bit. Then I was my first professional theatre job was doing a European tour of Hair, which was quite interesting, having to go naked every night.
Oh dear.
Nude lighting, luckily, but it was quite an experience. then I did several shows in the West End, Miss Saigon, Cotton Club, Carmen Jones, Fame. Then I had to break for a bit, and then I came back in to do the show that got me to doing the Rat Pack. I did the Rat Pack for a couple of years, and then I had polyps on my vocal cords. One, and it had surgery, but it didn't actually make things better. It made things slightly worse. So it took me a while to get back to using my voice in a way that I could now sing his stuff. I mean, I've lost a lot of my range for kind of more contemporary stuff, but I'm still able to sing the songs I need to do him. But it was when I was doing Sister Act in the original cast in London, and I just went, oh, I'm not learning anything anymore. I'm kind of so used to this now, turning up every night, doing the same show, and I was in an ensemble role then. I thought, I just needed something to get my teeth into. So I thought, maybe this is it. So I started to retrain in garden design, and I just went and moved on from there. And then it was when then I got asked back that it's very difficult to run them in tandem because you have to book so far in advance. Luckily, I can fit a lot of it around at the gaps. There's some bits of me that kind of will have to consider stopping at some point. There's another part of me that kind of goes, I don't want to. I kind of got so used to doing him now. Yeah. And the freedom we have being able to do our own show when we want, it's something that I would really miss.
So apart from the gardening and Sammy, you don't perform anywhere else, do you? It's just Sammy and the gardening. Okay. Yeah. So
they want to see you for this musical. I don't know. If they ring me about a commercial or a film, I might say, but I'm much more selective. They might send me, someone wants to see me for something, and I'll say, I know that part isn't for me. Yeah. There is no point in me turning up.
Yeah, just wasting your time.
It might, I might be all right, but I know that part's not for me. So I just tend to know if something is right, I might go up for it. But I don't audition for anything anymore because I generally hate auditioning. And and I don't want to take on a long-term commitment of a job for maybe 3 months. Yeah. If it sounds like a great, there's been some things that have been workshops for 3 months or in a small theatre somewhere, and they've been a great show, it looks like. But I'm thinking that's 3 months solid commitment, which would mean I couldn't do Sammy, and then there's other stuff I wouldn't be able to do. So it's kind of got to that point where I won't do any.
What made you choose the gardening side? What was it? Something that was always there for you? Just what made you want to become a horticulturalist?
Well, I just bought a house with a garden.
Okay.
So why not learn about gardening a bit and see? But there was an element on the course that I did initially that was a garden design section, and that was the bit that I thought, oh, I'm interested in that. And we kind of scraped over that in the last term, and we've done everything else. So I thought, okay, so that's when I went on and did a proper diploma in it. But I just thought nothing to lose. And then I actually because I've been so used to doing opposite hours when you do theatre, 9 to 5 jobs were going to be a no, and it's spent such a long time having your days free that suddenly switching it around would have been. I thought I liked the idea of working my own hours, so I could start work whenever I felt like. If I wanted to get up at 3 a.m. and start drawing, I could do that. It didn't. Really
and then I suppose from then you set up the company. Now you design other people's gardens.
But I'm moving away from that slightly. I'm more into consulting. Since doing my masters, I'm about to start another masters to try and bring the two together to do consulting for horticultural businesses and organisations on sustainability and environment. Is focusing a lot more on the people and environment as sustainability, and not so much as business sustainability.
I get you. Okay.
They need the planet and the people need more help than economic sustainability.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, your post, I think you put up online a couple of weeks ago about the plastic plants. It never occurred to me about plastic plants, and how they're damaging things because they're just replacing everything else that we should be growing and nurturing.
It's a massive industry. I mean, the government doesn't even recognise horticulture as an industry, but it's one of the biggest industries in the country. I mean, you can't eat without it. You know,
Yeah.
and whenever they talk about shortages on farms and that, you know, vegetable pickers of cabbages, that gets attributed to farming. And it's not, it's horticulture. It's not agriculture. It's actually the practices of fruit and vegetable growing are horticulture.
Yeah.
So when they do the surveys of how many people work in which sectors, we don't have anything. So we can either be agriculture, are we in that, or are we other? So we never know. So when they talk about percentage of people in industries, you're not included in those surveys, but it's a huge industry.
Yeah.
And has to adapt, which is why I want to go away and focus on more on sustainability, because we're going to have to make some changes. Everybody's going to have to make changes. It just isn't sustainable. And I get infuriated when I go to supermarkets and they still put things in plastic, or they change what they used to sell in recyclable plastic into something. They're going off tangent, but I'm having a rant.
No, keep going.
I bought some minced beef at Sainsbury's yesterday, right? And it now comes in a plastic wrap because it's nice and tight in a little block, like a butter block.
Yeah.
And you just peel the wrap and plonk it out. But the wrap now, it used to be in a plastic carton with a film on top stuck to it that you peeled off. The plastic bit underneath, at least you could put in your recycling bin.
Yeah.
This whole plastic thing they've now wrapped it in, it's got on do not recycle. I'm going, you've gone backwards.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? And why is nobody making sure this isn't happening? I don't understand why it was a good idea. It might be great for transporting it around in nice little blocks, but actually it's always forced on the end user. It's always our fault. What we do with the plastic afterwards.
At the end of it.
It's never the people at the top. They don't care.
No.
It's literally like if things aren't getting recycled, it's our fault for not
user's fault.
doing
So when you get the pack of something, it says recycle with large carrier bags at supermarkets. So I don't want to go to Tesco's with a small piece of plastic.
I put that into recycling. I still put that in because
you put it in,
it's recyclable.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we're lucky where I am in Oxfordshire, because they don't do any landfill anymore. So everything gets recycled, or it gets burned to create. There's a power plant, so it goes into to generate electricity. So at least that's a little bit greener.
Yeah.
But I think we've got to head for a more circular economy where you reuse everything.
Yeah, well, I
we recycle here. I go, no, it's not recycling. It's burning it and turning it to electricity. That's not recycling. That's
no. I mean, I remember. I mean, I'm a young lad of 52 now, but I remember in the 70s coming home with paper carrier bags from Sainsbury's, and there was no plastic. I'm thinking, but why have we gone backwards? Everybody kind of says about the modern world has to be recycled, but we were to some extent in the 70s recycling. We just weren't aware of it.
Plastic was a really useful thing for industry. There are a lot of things being made out of plastics that have been really good, but I think nobody really realized then, or if they did, they didn't say the impact would have many years down the line and how reliant we'd be on plastics. And the sad thing is, though, a lot of stuff, when they say it gets recycled, just gets shipped over to mounds of plastic in Indonesia or Thailand, or so it's I think when it's not on your doorstep, you don't notice it. But the fact you still see plastic bags, and people were throwing COVID masks out of cars who want a dog walk. COVID mask on the path. What? Take it home. It's
I mean, my bugger about the COVID masks, they didn't even snip the earpiece, so those poor kind of animals eat it and get their 4 feet kicked. Anyway, we're definitely off the point.
But there we go. Sorry, I could go on.
Talk about recycling. Let's talk about Sammy.
Yes, please.
So you obviously you kind of just do Sammy now. Is it when you are him, when you perform as Sammy, do you become Samuel, or is there still George in there somewhere? Do you leave him
there somewhere?
Do you leave him at the stage door and then?
I mean, I don't like the attention. I mean, I tend to leg it as soon as possible, not just to get my train, but I don't like people coming up and going, because I just feel like, oh, thank you. I don't feel, I don't feel special for doing it. I'm doing my job.
Yeah.
I'm portraying somebody, and without portraying, it's him that needs the gratitude, not me, because I wouldn't be doing all this material if he hadn't done it. So I can't take all the glory. I can take some of the glory for interpreting it. Because people always call us impersonators. We go, we're not impersonators, we're interpreters. Because I don't necessarily sound like him, but the way I pick songs to do his kind of phrasing helps. And people automatically, and from my profile and stuff, I do, someone's going to go, oh, you're a bit tall to play Sammy. Oh, you're not dark enough to play. I've never played. I remember I did the BBC Friday night is music night thing. They did an anniversary thing where I came on and sang Candyman live with a brass band. Now, for radio viewers, when they were interviewing me, I said I've been doing Sammy they said, how long have you been impersonating Sammy? And I didn't get a chance to say I'm not an impersonator. So anyone on the radio listening to it said, doesn't sound anything like him. But other people said, we've watched it live. Actually, if you watch him live, some of the comments, if you watch the actual recording of it on the website, physically, it is like that.
Yeah.
So, it's, and sometimes you have to keep revisiting it. You do have to kind of go, oh, I'm becoming a bit more George. Sometimes you get lots of different reactions from audience members. If nobody's enjoying or claps that much sometimes after one of your songs, it can be really disheartening. But I have to say that I tend to look at and go with this. If I can see one person somewhere focusing on me and listening and enjoying what I'm doing, then that they deserve the full performance. And I can't stand around going, oh, because that's the nature of the beast. You, like I said before, you are unfamiliar to a lot of people. You're singing songs they don't know. And the minute that, Fly Me to the Moon starts, then people know those kinds of intros. So they go, oh, when it starts. I don't get that so much of many of my songs. Apart from occasionally, once I start Bojangles, I might get or occasionally I've started something, but it's never the, oh, sing along.
Yeah. But was that the mannerism with Dean and Sammy and Frank? Did Sammy not get the applause as much and as at the first of the song as Dean and Frank did?
I think originally he did, because those songs were much more familiar to people then. Right. They would have been on their radar. They would have heard those songs because they would have heard the guys all together as well. And Sammy, as a performer, would have been much more relevant in those days while working with the guys, because he was, they were filming and they were featured on a lot of stuff. So I think, of course, Sammy would get a clap at the start of his song. But then as time went on, and he didn't record as many as the other two. Frank recorded far more songs than Dean did, and Dean more than Sammy did. So, and they all recorded the same songs at some point, but
and that's interesting.
Frank's version.
Have you heard Sammy's version of Ain't That a Kick in the Head?
Yeah.
It's I'm not sure if I like it, to be honest. It doesn't.
Yeah, there's some things that I just kind of go, oh no, Sammy. Yeah. Like when he moved into his disco phase.
Yes.
With the congregational choir, whatever it was called. Oh, that was awful. It was not.
But then I think that's good though, that he felt he was able to adapt, because if you look at Frank and Dean, they don't really change their kind of style as much, really. Certainly Frank didn't. Perhaps Dean maybe kind of tapped into country western more often than not, or he did very few kind of proper big band songs. Then he definitely went into kind of the easy listening kind of way towards the end of his career. But I think with Sammy, he tried so many different styles, which I think was. But then, does that mean then he didn't have a label as to what kind of singer he was?
But I don't know if you could say the same about the other two as well, because of their time, that was the sort of music everyone was doing, and it wasn't like you were singing other people's songs as a rule, and you weren't doing it coming out with a number one written by you. It's kind of, and because they were, like I said, they were all singing very similar songs by similar writers.
Yeah,
I think that, Sammy did take those songs and try to do a different arrangement, because I think there's no point in doing exactly the same arrangement as someone else. Why would you do it? So he has a style.
Yeah.
Especially with rhythms and stuff going on, but that would have been working with arrangers and stuff to get his sound. And I think some people love it or hate it, because there's certain times that I sing certain songs. If you do it at a corporate, for example, where there's a dance floor or something like that, they cannot dance to it because the rhythms are so off that they can't find the beat, and the dance floor clears because they can't dance to Old Black Magic, his version, because it changes rhythm all the time.
Yeah.
So I tend to have to pick ones that keep going.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes I go, if I can't sing this song without everyone's full attention and being able to deliver this song justice to him as well as the song, then I kind of got to the point now where at Christmas we were at Boysdale and there was just rowdy Christmas parties. I thought, you know what, I'm not singing Bojangles.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sing something bright and breezy, because if I can't concentrate on it, there's no point singing the song. They're not going to listen. It makes me feel awkward. I can't settle. It's distracting, and so it's generally corporates when they want Bojangles.
Yeah.
Please no, because I know how this is going to go. But then someone's going to drop a bottle off a table. Someone's going to scream with laughter at some point. I'm thinking, nothing worse singing a song like that, and someone goes at the back. So I'm like going, really? I also have to go, would you do that in my way?
Bojangle, jangle, bojangle. I knew a man, Bojangles, and he danced for you in worn-out shoes, with silver hair, a ragged shirt, and baggy pants. He would do the old soft shoe. He could jump so high, and then he'd lightly touch down. I met him in a cell in New Orleans, it was, when I was down and out. He looked to me to be the very eyes of age. As he spoke right out, talked of life. Lord, he talked of life, laughed, slapped his leg instead. He said his name was Bojangles as he danced a lick right across the cell. He grabbed his pants, took a better stance, jumped up high. That's when he clicked his heels. Then he let go a laugh. Lord, he let go a laugh. Shook back his clothes all around. That was Mr. Bojangles. Mr. Bojangles, Mr. Bojangles, Lord, he could dance. He said, I dance now on every chance behind these honky-tonks, working for my drinks and tips. But most of the time I spend behind these county bars. Cause you see, son, I just drink spit. Then he shook his head. Lord, when he shook his head, I could swear I heard somebody say, please. Mr. Bojangles, Mr. Bojangles, Mr. Bojangles, come back and dance, 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 dance. Why can't you come back and dance? Bojangles.
Oh, I love finding random new ones. Like I've added in his version of For Once in My Life.
Oh, okay.
I love it. I had a friend do an arrangement. Not good to sing at a cold. Oh, not good to sing with a cold, because the last two notes were a bit like, which I had a cold the last one I croaked out, and I was like, damn it. But no, that's my new favourite. I do love singing that. But I found another one. I was literally on the train coming home, and I was on random on my phone, just sitting on the train listening. And then his version of just the guitar and him doing Chasing Rainbows came on.
Okay.
And we've got an exceptional guitarist who tours with us when we do the bigger shows with the larger band.
Yeah.
And I suddenly went, oh, me and Eddie could do that. So I messaged Eddie and sent him the link to it and said, do you want to do this in Brazil? And I sent it to Mark, and Mark was like, oh, it's beautiful. Eddie will be great. And I went, yeah, I'll give that a go. Now, it might not work in the theatre because it's so just the guitar and me.
Yeah.
But if people are prepared to listen to it, and it's quite a short song, it's not the full song. It's kind of an abridged version, but the way he sings it and the guitar, it's just a really
yeah.
I do that. So I find random new songs to go.
Yeah.
But there's ones that people tell me, oh, you should do that, and I go, I don't think I can sing that in the same way.
Yeah.
So I have to be careful.
Yeah.
And it's also hard to learn them because you've got to learn them on your own, singing them off him. And if you haven't got the backing track, which there generally is no backing track for a new song that you're doing, because if you're going onto websites to find charts and new charts for songs, Frank and Dean songs, all over them. Sammy songs, not so many. So you have to kind of get them written, which means you don't get to actually sing them until the sound check of the first show you put them in on.
Yeah.
So I might sound check it a few shows and then add it in 3 dates in.
I get you.
So I get used to doing it to my point when I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah. So does that mean then, we kind of, when we spoke to Mark a couple of days ago, we were laughing about you not having to rehearse as a
no,
is that still the same for you, even though obviously when you add in those new songs, do you find you rehearse before you get to where you need to go? Do you do it kind of solo, or
I get it to a point where I'm confident enough with the words and the tune, but then once you get it there would be no way I'd put in a brand new song without going through it at soundcheck, because I wouldn't know what the arrangement sounded. I would, but I've never had a chance, like I said, to sing it on my own without his voice or have a recording of it.
Yeah.
But once you've done it, that's it. It's just, you've got to break it in. And there's some songs that I've done broken in on one night and been confident enough to go, I'll put it in tonight, that's easy. And others I've got all this hold on. And it's with everything. It's like when you do anything new, once you've done it the once live, you're like, that's done. You don't have to think about it again.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, if you overthink new songs, if you stand in the wings going, what are my words, what are my words, you do mess up. Although sometimes I'm in the wings going, I've got a new song to put in tonight, and I'm going to go through my words, going through my words in my head. And Stephen comes up and might go, blah, 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 right? You're thinking, words. But no, we don't rehearse. I mean, the girls don't even rehearse. Well, the girls, if they turn up, they know the harmonies. They remember the choreography. They sing through stuff in the dressing room, maybe. But everybody kind of, and I think the beauty is about being them is that they had things that were set, but they would go outside the parameters. Nothing was completely set in their shows anyway. They might have it would have been kind of like, we'll set it to this point, and that'll be your cue for this, or we'll go down that path here after you've sung that song. We might bung those gags in here, and then it's a bit of a free for all, and someone's got to bring it back on track as well. But if we were like doing Wicked and you messed up, you can't stop the show and say do it again, can you?
Yeah.
And everything is set with the band. Whereas if we, we've been doing it so long that you can get yourself out of a sticky situation by making a joke of it, but it's so ingrained in us what we do. Yeah. But slips of the tongue happen. I mean, that's quite easy. Yeah. But But generally, and I know it might sound really unprofessional to people, thinking, "Oh, you don't rehearse." But what is there to rehearse?
Yeah, when you've been doing the shows for so many, how many performances must you have done in total over the years?
I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. So
Mark probably would know. He usually likes to count those. And
yeah, we'll ask him.
those
Yeah,
little
we'll ask him.
figures.
When an irresistible force such as you meets an old immovable object like me, you can bet as sure as you live, something's gotta give, something's gotta give, something's gotta give. When an irrepressible smile such as yours warms an old implacable heart such as mine, don't say no, because I insist. Somewhere, somehow, someone's gonna be kissed. So on guard, who knows what the fates have in store from their vast, mysterious sky. I'll try hard, ignoring those lips I adore. But how long can anyone try? Fight it with all of our might. Chances are some heavenly star-spangled night we'll find out as long as we live. Something's really got to give.
Why did you want us to play that song for you?
That was one of the first new songs that I put in that I wasn't originally singing before. And one of the first arrangements I got someone to do for me, because we were doing Sinatra and Friends, I wanted to add in a song. And also, again, from songs that I was always doing songs that had cross rhythms in. I thought I want to add in a good steady swing song.
Yeah.
And to change things up a bit for me personally, but also because it was Sinatra and Friends, it was so that I could introduce the song as I'm doing it as a tribute to Frank, because it was one of his. He was better known for doing that song, so it fitted in nicely into the format, as well as being a nice challenge for me to sing something that was a bit more of a straight swung song to get that in there.
So bearing in mind, obviously, you said earlier that you kind of focus on your horticultural side and focusing on Sammy as part of the Rat Pack. Would you ever have wanted to have done a solo Sammy show?
Quick answer, no. But the longer answer, I know that Mark struggled to do a Dean show, and knowing how unfamiliar some people were with Sammy, it would just be like, I couldn't have seen the market there. That was number one.
Yeah.
Secondly, what would you do with it? I mean, just singing Sammy, so you'd have to come up with a very interesting way of doing it, maybe doing a Sammy and me show.
Yeah.
But then what happens is we're better off as a team, because you bring all the talents and all the range of songs together with the chemistry and the having fun. When you're doing a solo, you can try and be as funny as you like on a solo show, but we're funnier and better when we're all together. It's
side by side.
Yeah, and so
our theme song.
Yeah.
And somebody did do, people have brought out Golden Boy and that kind of. Giles, who's an exceptional actor, did a Sammy show and worked with Leslie Bricusse.
Yeah,
that was okay, but the demand really wasn't there. It was quite actually. I don't when we were first doing it, they did keep us as we were never really billed that often as the people playing the roles. So they very much wanted to make the show, because in their minds, they could bung anybody in, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So we were never really given the publicity we deserved on that show.
Yeah.
And then when I left, they then decided to rebrand, and they started to put Mark, Stephen and Giles on the posters a couple of years later.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so then Giles got all the attention. It's as if all my hard work starting the show off was kind of eradicated. Giles taught me a lot watching his performance as an actor, and he was brilliant. But he did come in as my understudy when we went into town.
Yeah.
And then, so I did feel like, and it's not his fault, it just felt like I'd been erased from my commitment to that role, because everyone thought it was always him. He got the most publicity out of it because his face was out there as part of it. So I kind of, and then after that, he became known as Sammy, the person that played Sammy, and then got to work with Leslie Brickus on this thing.
Yeah.
And then other people that followed me got to do other Sammy shows, and it was like, well, I kind of felt a bit erased, but that was the way the management.
I kind of understand that, and as talented as you, who deserves that credit.
So, like I said, I blame circumstance. It's not anyone's fault. It's just that they happened.
I suppose so. I suppose so.
And Giles happened to be there at the time. But if they'd done that and treated us properly when we did it, and actually billed us as the people playing the parts properly, I might have had, because you still had to face, like, remember Stephen and Mark, I think somebody posted something of, and it happened several times. People posted something of us doing something, and somebody who was a friend or a fan of Giles would come in and say, not as good as Giles or something. Thinking that I was new. But Mark and Stephen, that's when they came to my defense, and they were like, actually, George was the first to say this. Yes, you might not think he sounds anything, but you know what? And Mark, they were both coming to defend me when these things happen. But again, that's because to some people, I'm doing something someone else did. So it kind of
deflated.
I kind of lost that kind of thing of being the person. So doing it now, and I still.
You'll always be Sammy to me, George.
And you'll always be Elliot to me.
Bless you. You're always my favourite. Don't tell the others, but you're always my favourite.
So I think the next thing you're going to play is Bye Bye Blackbird. It's one of my favourites.
1, 2, you know what to do. Pack up all my cares and woes. Here I go, singing low. Bye bye, brown bird. Where's somebody? Well, you know how sensitive I am. So is she. Bye bye, blackbird. No one here can love or understand me. Holy gee, what hard luck stories they all hand me. Make my bed and light of my life. I will arrive stoned tonight. Blackbird, bye bye. Pack up all my cares and woes. Here I go, swinging low. Bye 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 bye, blackbird. Where somebody waits for me. Mark and Tracy are sweet, and so is she. So long, Mr. Blackbird. No one here can love or understand me. Oh, what hard luck stories they all hand me. So make my bed and light bye. Blackbird, split the scene. Blackbird, bye bye.
Oh, I love Sammy when he does his bass line starts things. It's just, the minute I heard that song, the recording of it, I went, oh, I've got to do this. Because it was very reminiscent of Falling in Love Again, which we used to do. And because we were trying to get rid of lots of songs that we did with the other company, I missed having a bass song like that. And the fact that he just starts it off, he starts the timing off, it's the tempo you want, it's just you and the bass. And he makes in the first when he's, and especially the words when he says "bye bye brown bird." Sorry, you know me, I'm a bit sensitive. Things like that were just like funny. That's why on the album we did it as if it was a live recording to emulate his version of it. So there is. That's why you hear the clapping and the laughter in it, because it was it was a live version. And you could do the whole thing with just the bass. I mean, it's just a great. Although people do think it's King of the Road when it starts. Yes. Even though Mark's just sung King of the Road a few songs ago. People go, King, and then I'm thinking, what show are you watching? Do you think I'm going to come and say, oh. But no, I love that song. It's a really, and it's a lot of the bottom notes that he does when he slides into a lot of the bottom notes of it, and it was just, I just heard that song and went, this is the type of song that I need to get someone to write a chart for. It felt like that's a song when you hear it, you kind of go, I'm going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Here's a happy tune. A happy tune. You'll love to croon. You love to croon. They call it Dean's song.
Hey, you don't seem to understand.
Catchy as can be.
I must agree.
The melody. They call it Dean's song.
Looks like I'm gonna have to explain this thing. You don't dig this scene. I'm saying, Dean, the song is Sam's song.
Sam, you're just a ham.
But Dean, here's the scam. The song was named after Sam.
Sam who?
Sam Houston.
Oh, may I say with pride, where I reside, they call it Dean's song.
And that's quite a group you got going for you.
There's no bigger choir that you could hire for singing Dean's song.
They make the Mormon Tabernacle sound like a trio.
Sam, it's plain to see that you're put out with me.
Well, I'm just not singing along.
Tell you what I'll do, since I'm with you. We'll call it Clyde's song.
Clyde's song?
Here's a happy tune.
It's a sweet melody, and I'm happy to say it was named after me, but he's calling it
Clyde's song. Catchy as can be.
No, I don't like the beef, and I'm sorry to say that the man is a thief because he's calling it
Clyde's song. Nothing on your mind.
There's a lot on my mind, and I'm standing here saying you're being unkind because you're calling it
Clyde's song.
My Australian friend, we have reason. We simply don't seem to blend.
Sam, let's compromise.
Oh, I hear what you say, but by that do you mean that you'll do it your way and keep calling it
Sam's song?
Did he say Sam's song? Let's give the ending a ride. Yeah.
But don't nobody tell Clyde
that's the name of the song.
It's Sam's song.
It's not Irving's song.
Sam's song.
It's not even Mona's song.
It's Sam's song.
Only thing I know is when this record come out, it better have Sam's song on it, or else you're gonna get a nasty letter from Calhoun and a telephone call too.
Yeah, I think you're starting to get dirty now, there.
You're gonna have a meeting at the lodge hall.
Well, thank you so much, George, for joining us. Absolute delight to talk to you. And your gardening tip is?
Begonias. No, I don't.
Okay, take care.
Nice to meet you.
Bye. Nice to meet you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And
that brings us to the end of episode 6. A big thank you from myself and Cindy to George for joining us, and of course you for listening. The Definitive Rat Pack are in Dublin tomorrow, and then they fly out to Brazil for the 11th and 12th of May. Please visit thedefinitiveratpack.com for full global tour dates and to buy tickets. Next time, Cindy and I will be joined by the world's foremost collector of Dean Martin memorabilia. Jimmy Monaco, who owns and manages the Dean Martin Travelling Museum, will be here to talk about his collection and, of course, Dean himself. Don't miss it, and we'll be back on the 26th of May. Until then, goodbye.
You've been listening to the DMA Podcast, a Shaken Not Stirred and Memory Hive production for the Dean Martin Association. The DMA Podcast is copyright Memory Hive Productions and is a not-for-profit project. There are no financial incentives or fees payable to any contributor, guest, or performer.
Click on our logo to subscribe to the Dean Martin Association's official YouTube channel. Please also visit DeanMartinAssociation.com. Why not also subscribe to our podcast on Spotify? Search the Dean Martin Association Podcast.